Hi everybody, this is pianist Mackenzie Melemed. Welcome back to another Pianostics video. For those of you joining in for the first time, a big welcome to you. I'm a 29-year-old classical pianist. I did my training at the Juilliard School in New York City with Robert McDonald and Emmanuel Axe, and I've been teaching privately since graduating in 2020. I currently reside in Helsinki, Finland, and I recently had the idea of promoting education for classical piano, especially trying to share some of the knowledge that I've gained. It's invaluable information from fantastic teachers while studying at Juilliard. I would really appreciate it if you like the videos and subscribe to the channel, and also share with your classical piano communities as well. These 15-minute lessons, my first series, they're going to cover a wide variety of different repertoire from Bach to Chopin. We'll be discussing elements of like fingering, phrasing, articulation, how to think about the overall architecture of the piece, and hopefully there'll be something in every episode that you can apply to your own practicing to help make it more efficient, practicing smarter so you can learn more in less time, and also get right to focusing on the musical content in the score. I really appreciate you being here with me, and without further ado, let's jump into the lessons. In today's 15-minute lesson, we're going to be speaking about phrasing one long line, and I thought what better phrase to use than one of the most well-known and beloved phrases in all of classical music, at least in piano repertoire, from Rachmaninoff's Second Piano Concerto, a piece that I just actually played last week here in Finland. It was a fantastic experience to play it again after a couple of years, and also to apply the idea of one long phrase throughout the work, because there's so much beauty in Rachmaninoff, and it's very easy to get lost in the short phrase lines, these slur lines that we see, that can really split a melody that we want to really have floating above the noise of the left hand, and just really soaring as much as we can for as long as we can. And in order to do that, we have to think about a few different things. On my game plan, I want to speak a little bit about the intensity of the sound, your choice of rubato, when you're considering where to do rubato in the phrase, kind of at a smart moment. And the pedaling also contributes to our sense of where the phrase is going. If we have a clunky pedal habit, then it's going to be very difficult to avoid mashing up the phrase, just with our foot kind of making a delineation in the phrase itself. And so we're going to focus a little bit on smooth pedaling. And the left hand, lastly, matters a lot more than you think. The shaping of the left hand, especially because it's actually faster than the right hand, is going to be something that is going to be a mediator for us as we try to prolong and prolong and prolong the length of our phrase and keep the phrase afloat. We're going to be relying on the left hand a lot. And the smoothness. That wasn't as smooth as I would have liked. Something like that. So these four things are going to be important. I'll speak briefly about them in today's lesson, which is just going to be about phrasing a long line. So if we look, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Basically, this is where the first phrase ends. We've got 7 slurs, but 1 long line. He's been kind of specific where he wants us to think about where we put some sort of, not accent, but accentuation with these tenuto lines. And then he gives us basically our directions with our hairpins, which he does just twice in this line. So if I play it here, wasn't perfect, obviously, but the main idea of what I'm going for here is that when we see the hairpins, for example, in the first and second bar, a lot of times we go up somewhere unnecessarily much because of the hairpin. And then when the hairpin comes down, we come down unnecessarily much. And that gives us this kind of wave. And then we have to kind of retake the phrase, and he only wrote piano here. And so when you see, for example, in these 9 bars or 8 bars for the first phrase, we just have piano. And I think that's an interesting mark that he's not giving us something that's really going places in terms of dynamic development. It's kind of actually staying in around the same, basically around the same place, with the exception of 2 hairpins, which could also just be kind of a directional thing as well. Sometimes hairpins are written to kind of push us forward, not volume-wise, but just directionally. This is the next thing I want to talk about. Usually the phrase, kind of, for us, we're back on the tonic. And we relax. But actually, the phrase with the slur is headed to this A here. And so what will happen a lot of times is we'll enjoy this phrase. And the next A natural that comes out is a little bit clunky. It doesn't really feel like it's fitting as a kind of a finale after this B flat. And we're still going. So if we think about maybe perhaps one place we'd like to take some time, the danger zone would, of course, be here, because we actually have to 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. That's kind of a given. That's what he writes, that we need to be thinking actually about going through these 2 bars here. These bars pretty much should be connected. And so I'm actually thinking about perhaps leading right to here as an idea. So the intensity of our sound is going to be important. If we come up too much and come down too much in the first 2 measures, there's not going to be any place for us to grow throughout the 8 measures that we have. So it's nice to live in this beautiful sound. We do maybe come up here naturally in the last 2 measures. So perhaps a low point would be just before that, which is where I had marked where we want to arrive. And so if we start somewhere in the middle, that might be a resting place here. And it's also the beginning of a phrase, or beginning of a slur line for him, these 2 bars here. So if we actually kind of come down before, we do have a natural way to come out without being on the reverse of that, which was here, and kind of having a on the A natural. We have a low arrival here so that we can build. So that's kind of my idea of what I was trying to do, and generally keeping the dynamics more or less in a similar place, not going to extremes, is going to allow you to prolong phrases even longer. When you're doing a slow crescendo, for example, I always try to think, this next note is plus 2%, plus 2%, plus 2%, not just, immediately. It sounds like we're kind of going on this roller coaster, and that's not what's, from what's written, that's not what Rachmaninoff had in mind. And so perhaps then, if we have the low point here, what can we think about where the peak is in terms of, it might very well be here, the peak of dynamic. And we're eventually coming down, but we're living in this beautiful sound. Low point and coming back up. So with the sound intensity, that's how I'm going to be planning. And that kind of covers as well, number 2, where our rubatos are occurring. If we're going through everything, we're going through these 8 measures and we want to have one long phrase, we really want to be sure where they're occurring and where they should not be occurring. And so I already kind of pointed out here, if we do a rubato here, it's very hard to connect this B flat then to the A. So it's, once we think of 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. If we think about it 1, 2, 3, 4, without the rubato, we're able to kind of keep the intensity of the B flat and use the A as a kind of springboard into the next. On our way down. But the A is not kind of given new life just because we've decided to do a little bit of a rubato. So no matter what you do in that 5th bar, always think that the B flat is connected with the slur to the A, and any kind of sudden jolts of sound is going to kind of take us out of that idea of having all 8 measures together. Smooth pedaling. So I wonder if I can change here. If I can, you probably won't be able to hear it anyway, but I do have a setting on my keyboard that allows you to hear the fall board, sorry, not the fall board, but the pedal board very loudly. So it will give you this kind of artificially loud psh, psh, when you hit the pedal. But if I turn up the volume a little bit and play. If you have the feeling that you're lifting your pedal all the way up, I would kind of urge you to try a half pedal so that, I'm sure maybe you can hear this da 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 da, that it's not kind of it's like kind of a second marker, a silent marker for you, for your rhythm, that, it's pedal down and change and change and change and change. The more you can do that kind of without kind of putting on a show with your foot in terms of showing the rhythm so much. Because sometimes in a concert and I see, and it's kind of distracting to me, how rhythmically someone is changing their pedal. And I think that it can help a lot by kind of streamlining the idea of the pedal and using it for, even if you notice, can I sustain the left hand legato line without, pushing my foot all the way up, letting the pedal all the way up, or pushing the pedal all the way down. Now to show just a very opposite version. Now, I wasn't purposely trying to play kind of the downbeats extra, but there can be a tendency that if you're having a sharp attack on your pedal, it's going to translate in some kind of physical way to your hand. And so just thinking about, instead of the pedal coming up and down like this, if it's, more on a sensitivity scale, you're trying to be a little bit more sensitive and trying not to, wake someone that's sleeping by, having it come up and up. I don't know if you've played those games where you try to not really sure what the game is, but you don't want to have the moment that anything comes up way up too much, the game is over, or all the way down. You kind of have to swim in the middle. And Horowitz was one for having over 20 different levels of his pedaling or something very, very, very precise. And so that may help a lot, just smoothing out the line. And finally, I just want to speak a little bit about the left hand. As I said, really knowing your left hand is something that, a lot of times we can play the right hand and we can play the left hand when it's with the right hand. But if we put our right hand away and not, playing like an air or air playing or playing on your knee, for example, if you really just put your left hand, right hand behind you, how well can you play this line? And then also try, really sinking into the notes as well. So I kind of try to carry the line across. But it's also good that if you're not comfortable with your left hand without the right hand, playing it as if it was, say, let's playing it like the melody. In my performance last week, I noticed that I was really bringing out the left hand a lot more than I had ever in the past, and it really helped me just see the structure of the phrase. And so, regardless of how well played out you're going to use the left hand in relationship to your right hand melody, it can be nice to just really feel the keys if you're not 100% comfortable, and then later on kind of adapt to the character that you want. But the worst thing you can do is not really know the left hand and continue to play very lightly in the character that you think you're trying to make, but you're not comfortable really in the key. And so hopefully with those four things, the idea of one long phrase is something attainable and something that you can do systematically and methodically. Think about the intensity of your sound. Consider, where your rubatos are and where you should be avoiding them in order to avoid those, sudden jolting sounds that will give you an accent that you really don't want, and how to, make the pedal less of a rhythmic thing and more of a musical. It's not like the pedal is your extra percussion instrument. So you really want to make sure that that's, the pedal is working for exactly how you need it in a smooth way, and focusing on the sound quality of your left hand and just your own personal confidence with playing the left hand line without the right hand. And that's a challenge for all pianists at all levels, is because it's not something that we do very often, but we should start practicing in that way and having that as part of our routine. So I hope you learned a little bit about phrasing in one big line.